Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Uh, Director Coates, Director Pompeo, Admiral Rogers, I think you all talked about evidence that the Russians would intend to do things to be active in our elections. There really seems to me two divisions of that activity. One is information that's put on the record that misleading, false, trying to develop that level. The other, even more sinister, might be the level of dealing with the election system itself, the voting day system, the registration system, and of those two, clearly the voting day system, the one we need to have the most concerns about, that critical infrastructure. You know, this committee has been working toward both of those goals of trying to shore up critical infrastructure on election day, as well as alert people to and decide what might be done about misinformation on the other side of the ledger. Voting begins in March. That's next month. If we're going to have any impact on securing that voting system itself, it would seem to me that we need to be acting quickly. I think a great part of the strength of the system is the diversity of the system, different not only from state to state, but from election jurisdictions within those states. That's a strength, not a weakness in my view. But what are some of the things we can do to be more helpful to local election officials in encouraging them to share information when they think their systems are being attacked, getting more information to them than we have? There was a lot of criticism in the last cycle that we knew that some election systems were being attacked and didn't tell them they were being attacked. And so the three of you, in any order, let's just do the order that I started with, Director Coates, Director Pompeo, Admiral Rogers, any thoughts you have on what we can do to protect the critical infrastructure of the election system and how quickly we need to act if we intend to do that this year?
Well, the intelligence community, all elements of it, are aware, and we want to collect and provide as much information as we can so that we can give those warnings and alerts, so that we can share information back and forth with local and state and election processes with the federal government. Department of Homeland Security, Department of FBI, obviously are more involved given these are domestic issues, but we do look to every piece of intelligence we can gather so that we can provide these warnings. It is an effort that I think the government needs to put together at the state and local level and work with those individuals who are engaged in the election process in terms of the security of their machines. Cyber plays a major role here, and so I think it is clearly an area where the federal government, foreign collection on potential threats and of interference, warnings, and then processes in terms of how to put in place security and secure that to ensure the American people that their vote is sanctioned and well and not manipulated in any way whatsoever.
Director Pompeo.
Senator Blunt, when I answered Senator Heinrich's question earlier, I was referring to the former, the first part of your question, not truly to the latter. The things we've seen Russia doing to date are mostly focused on information types of warfare, the things that Senator Warner was speaking out most directly earlier. With respect to the CIA's role, and I think Admiral Rogers will say his too, we have two missions. One is to identify the source of this information, make those here domestically aware of it so that they can do the things they need to do, whether that's FBI or DHS, so that they have that information. We are working diligently along many threat vectors to do that. And then the second thing, and we can talk more about this afternoon, is we do have some capabilities offensively to raise the cost for those who would dare challenge the United States elections.
And after Admiral Rogers, Director Wray, I may want to come to you and see on that same sharing information, any impediments to sharing that information with local officials, or any reason we wouldn't want to do that. Admiral Rogers?
Senator, the only other thing I would add, and this is also shaped by my experience as Cyber Command, where I defend networks, is one of the things that we generally find in that role, many network and system operators do not truly understand their own structures and systems. And so one of the things that I think is part of this is, how do we help those local, federal, state entities truly understand their network structure, what its potential vulnerabilities, and to harness this information that the intelligence structure and other elements are providing them? It's not necessarily an intel function, but I think it's part of how do we work our way through this process.
Director Wray?
Senator, I think that's just one of the areas that there's been a lot of discussion about whether we're doing better, and this is one of the areas I think we are doing better. We together at the FBI, together with DHS, recently, for example, scheduled meetings with various state election officials, and normally the barrier there would be classification concerns, whether somebody had clearances. We were able to put together briefings appropriately tailored and with non-disclosure agreements with those officials. So there are ways, if people are a little bit creative and forward-leaning, to educate the state election officials, which is, of course, where elections are run in this country.
Well, hopefully we'll be creative and forward-leaning, and we'll want to keep track of what we're doing there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.